Here's a brutal truth that nobody wants to admit. The smarter you get, the lonelier you become. And if you're watching this video, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You're sitting there feeling like you're surrounded by people, but completely alone at the same time, wondering why meaningful conversations seem impossible to find, why small talk makes you want to scream, and why everyone else seems perfectly content with surface-level interactions, while you're craving something deeper. Well, here's what's going to blow your mind. You're not broken, you're not antisocial, and you're definitely not crazy. In fact, studies show that people with higher IQs report significantly higher rates of loneliness and social isolation. What you're experiencing has been documented by one of history's most brilliant philosophers, Arthur Schopenhauer, who figured out over 150 years ago why intelligent people often feel like outsiders in their own society. And the reason isn't what you think. See, most people believe that intelligence should make you more popular, more successful in relationships, and better at navigating social situations. But Schopenhauer discovered something counterintuitive that'll change how you see every interaction from now on. Intelligence actually creates a natural barrier between you and the average person, and society is secretly terrified of people who think too deeply. If you've ever felt like you're speaking a different language than everyone around you, if you've ever been called too intense or overthinking everything, or if you've ever wondered why you prefer your own company to most social gatherings, then this video is going to be a game changer for you. But here's the thing. I'm not just going to explain why this happens. I'm going to show you exactly how to navigate social life as an intelligent person without losing your authenticity or your sanity. Before we dive deep into Schopenhauer's insights, do me a favor and hit that like button if you're already relating to this, and subscribe if you want more content that actually makes you think instead of just filling time. Your support helps me create these deeper conversations that you won't find anywhere else on YouTube. Now, stick with me until the end because I'm going to reveal the most liberating realization about intelligence and isolation, something that'll transform your relationship with solitude from a burden into your greatest superpower. Trust me, the last few minutes of this video will hit different than anything you've heard before. So let's start with the uncomfortable truth that most people refuse to acknowledge. Here's something that'll hit you right in the gut. The smarter you get, the lonelier you become. It's not some cruel joke the universe is playing on you. It's actually a predictable pattern that Schopenhauer observed centuries ago. Think about it for a second. When you're intelligent, you start seeing things differently than most people around you. You notice patterns, you question assumptions, you dig deeper into conversations while others are perfectly content skimming the surface. It's like being the only person in a room who can see colors while everyone else sees in black and white. Sure, you've got this incredible gift, but damn, it can feel isolating when nobody else sees what you're seeing. The harsh reality is that intelligence creates a natural barrier between you and the average person. It's not that you're trying to be superior or condescending. Hell, most intelligent people would give anything to just turn off their brains and enjoy mindless small talk sometimes. But your mind doesn't work that way. When someone's talking about the weather for the 10th time this week, your brain's already moved on to analyzing why humans use weather as a social lubricant, what it says about our evolutionary need for connection, and how it reflects our discomfort with meaningful silence. You can't help it. It's like trying to unsee a magic trick once you know how it works. Your intelligence becomes this lens you can't remove, constantly filtering and analyzing everything around you. Take last week, for instance. You're at a work meeting, and everyone's nodding along to a proposal that's clearly flawed. You can see the logical inconsistencies, the potential problems down the road, the better alternatives nobody's considering. But when you speak up with genuine concerns, you get those looks, like you're the difficult one, the overthinker, the person who can't just go with the flow. So you learn to bite your tongue, but that internal dialogue never stops. You're constantly processing what others are missing, and it's mentally exhausting. Most people find this level of thinking exhausting, and honestly, they're not wrong. When you're constantly processing life at such a deep level, casual interactions can feel incredibly shallow and unfulfilling. You're craving intellectual stimulation, meaningful conversations, and genuine connections, but society's running on autopilot with its scripted pleasantries and surface-level exchanges. It's like trying to have a philosophical discussion at a sports bar during the Super Bowl. You're speaking different languages entirely. The loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about feeling misunderstood even when you're surrounded by people. You start questioning whether there's something wrong with you for wanting more substance in your relationships and conversations. But here's where it gets really twisted. Society often interprets your need for depth as arrogance or antisocial behavior. They see your preference for solitude as you thinking you're too good for them, when in reality, you're just seeking the kind of mental stimulation that makes life worth living. It's exhausting to constantly dumb down your thoughts or pretend to be engaged in conversations that feel meaningless to you. So you retreat, you choose solitude, and suddenly everyone's confirming their suspicions that intelligent people are just stuck-up loners. But there's more to this story than meets the eye, and understanding Schopenhauer's take on social dynamics will blow your mind. Schopenhauer dropped some serious wisdom when he talked about social relationships, and it's going to change how you see every interaction from now on. He basically said that the more people you need around you to feel complete, the less complete you actually are as an individual. Think about that for a moment. It's like the inverse relationship between intelligence and the need for constant social validation. The smarter you get, the more you realize that meaningful connections are rare as hell, and you'd rather have one deep conversation than 100 shallow ones. You're not antisocial, you're just selective. You've figured out that your time and mental energy are finite resources, and you're not about to waste them on relationships that don't add real value to your life. Here's what most people don't get about intelligent individuals. They're not avoiding social life because they can't handle it. They're avoiding it because they can see through it too clearly. When you're intelligent, you quickly recognize the games, the superficial motivations, and the empty rituals that dominate most social interactions. You see people collecting friends like trophies, bragging about how busy their social calendars are, while having no real intimacy or understanding with any of those people. It's like watching someone proudly show off a library full of books they've never read. Sure, it looks impressive from the outside, but what's the actual substance there? You'd rather have 3 books you've thoroughly digested than 300 you've just skimmed through. Schopenhauer understood that intelligent people naturally gravitate toward what he called the hedgehog's dilemma. They need warmth and connection, but they also need space to think and create. Too much social interaction becomes overwhelming and draining because you're constantly having to translate your thoughts into simpler terms, bite your tongue when you disagree, or pretend to be interested in topics that don't challenge you intellectually. It's like being a professional chef who's forced to eat fast food at every meal. Technically it's food, but it doesn't nourish you in the way you need. You start craving those rare moments when you meet someone who actually gets it, who can match your intellectual pace, who doesn't need you to explain the deeper layers of what you're thinking. The beautiful paradox is that by choosing quality over quantity in relationships, intelligent people often end up with deeper, more fulfilling connections than those who spread themselves thin across dozens of superficial friendships. But here's the catch. Society judges relationship success by numbers, not depth. People see your small circle and assume you're socially inadequate, when in reality, you've just figured out something most people never will. That true connection requires a level of authenticity and intellectual compatibility that's incredibly rare. And this selective approach to relationships ties directly into why intelligent people struggle with the facades and pretenses that dominate social interactions. Once your intelligence reaches a certain level, you develop what I like to call social X-ray vision. You can see straight through the masks people wear. And brother, it's both a gift and a curse. You start noticing the micro-expressions that contradict someone's words, the way people modify their personalities depending on who's in the room, the subtle power plays happening beneath polite conversation. It's like being the only person who can see that the emperor has no clothes, except everyone around you is praising his beautiful outfit. You're sitting there thinking, are we all looking at the same thing here? But speaking up would make you the troublemaker, so you learn to keep your observations to yourself, which only adds to that feeling of isolation. The worst part? Most social interactions start feeling like elaborate theater productions where everyone's playing a role except you. You watch people code switch between different versions of themselves, one personality for their boss, another for their spouse, a third for their drinking buddies. And you're thinking, which one is the real you? Meanwhile, you're over there being authentically yourself, which apparently makes you the weird one in this scenario. It's exhausting to be surrounded by people who are essentially strangers to themselves, putting on different masks for different occasions while you're desperately seeking genuine human connection. You start feeling like you're living in a world of NPCs, non-player characters who are just going through the motions without any real depth or self-awareness. Your intelligence becomes this burden because you can predict conversations before they happen. You can see the outcome of social situations miles away, and you understand people's motivations better than they understand themselves. It's like having cheat codes for human behavior, except the game becomes boring when you can see all the patterns and scripts everyone's following. You'll be at a party and someone starts telling a story, and you already know exactly how they want you to react, what response they're fishing for, and how the whole interaction is supposed to play out. There's no surprise, no genuine discovery, no real engagement, just people following their social programming while you're the only one who seems to be aware that it's all just a performance. But here's what really gets to you. When you occasionally let your guard down and show people who you really are beneath the surface, they often can't handle it. Your authenticity makes them uncomfortable because it highlights their own lack of genuineness. They prefer the safety of small talk and surface-level interactions because going deeper requires vulnerability and self-reflection that most people simply aren't ready for. So you learn to play the game too, which creates this internal conflict between being true to yourself and fitting in with society. And this struggle becomes even more apparent when you're forced into those dreaded small talk situations. Let me paint you a picture that'll make you laugh and cry at the same time. You're at a social gathering, and someone walks up to you with that bright, expectant smile and asks, "So, how about this weather we're having?" And inside your head, you're screaming. Not because you hate the person, but because your brain immediately starts analyzing why humans default to weather discussions, how it relates to our evolutionary need for safe social bonding, and whether this conversation has any possibility of evolving into something meaningful. Meanwhile, you're supposed to just smile and say, "Yeah, it's been pretty hot lately," and pretend like that's a satisfying exchange. It's like being a race car driver stuck in a school zone. You've got all this intellectual horsepower, but you're forced to crawl along at a pace that feels painfully slow. The thing is, small talk serves a purpose for most people. It's a social ritual that helps them feel connected without requiring any real vulnerability or deep thinking. But for intelligent individuals, these surface-level interactions feel like emotional junk food. You're starving for intellectual nutrition, and someone's offering you conversational cotton candy. Your brain craves complexity, nuance, and depth, but society's serving up the same reheated topics: weather, sports, celebrity gossip, and work complaints. It's not that you can't engage in small talk, you've probably mastered it out of social necessity, but it drains your energy like nothing else. You're essentially running a high-performance processor on basic software, and it's frustratingly inefficient. What makes it worse is that you can see the potential for deeper conversation in almost every interaction, but most people aren't willing to go there. Someone mentions they're stressed about work, and you're ready to dive into a discussion about work-life balance, the psychology of stress, or how modern capitalism affects mental health. But they just want to complain for a few minutes and move on. You offer genuine insights or ask thought-provoking questions, and you get blank stares or quick topic changes. It's like showing up to a potluck with a gourmet meal and finding out everyone else brought chips and dip. There's nothing wrong with chips and dip, but when that's all that's available, you leave feeling unsatisfied and wondering why you even bothered. The irony is that your struggle with small talk often gets misinterpreted as social incompetence or arrogance, when in reality, you're just operating on a different frequency. You're not bad at socializing, you're bad at pretending that meaningless chatter is fulfilling. You've probably noticed that you can have amazing conversations with certain people, but they're few and far between. Those rare interactions where someone matches your intellectual curiosity feel like finding water in the desert. But those moments of connection make you realize something important about where your best ideas actually come from and why solitude isn't your enemy. Here's something that'll blow your mind. All the greatest breakthroughs in human history happened in solitude, not in brainstorming sessions or social gatherings. Einstein came up with relativity theory during his quiet walks. Tesla visualized his inventions in the silence of his laboratory. And every major philosopher from Schopenhauer to Nietzsche did their best thinking alone. There's something magical that happens when an intelligent mind gets uninterrupted space to explore ideas without having to explain, justify, or simplify them for others. It's like the difference between trying to write a symphony in the middle of a construction site versus having a soundproof studio all to yourself. Your brain needs that sacred space to make connections, to follow thought patterns down rabbit holes, and to discover insights that would never emerge in the chaos of constant social interaction. Think about your own experience for a second. When do your best ideas come to you? I'll bet it's during those quiet moments, maybe in the shower, during a solitary walk, or in the stillness just before you fall asleep. That's not coincidence. That's your intelligent mind finally getting the bandwidth it needs to process and create. When you're constantly surrounded by people, your brain is tied up in social processing, reading facial expressions, monitoring tone of voice, calculating appropriate responses, managing group dynamics. It's like trying to run complex software while your computer's memory is already maxed out. But in solitude, all that processing power gets redirected toward creativity, problem solving, and deep thinking. Suddenly, you're not just consuming thoughts, you're actually creating them. The beautiful thing about embracing solitude as an intelligent person is that you stop feeling guilty about your need for alone time. Society tries to make you believe that wanting to be alone is somehow antisocial or unhealthy, but that's complete nonsense. Your need for solitude isn't a character flaw, it's a requirement for your intellectual well-being. It's like telling a professional athlete that they shouldn't need to train alone, or a musician that they shouldn't practice by themselves. Your mind is your instrument, and it needs dedicated time to tune up, practice scales, and compose new pieces. When you give yourself permission to prioritize solitude, you're not withdrawing from the world, you're preparing to contribute something meaningful to it. But here's what's really fascinating. The more comfortable you become with solitude, the less you need validation from others for your thoughts and ideas. You start trusting your own intellectual process instead of constantly seeking approval from people who might not even understand what you're working on. This independence of thought is incredibly liberating, but it also makes you more threatening to those who prefer conformity and groupthink. And that brings us to one of the most uncomfortable truths about intelligence. Society isn't just indifferent to deep thinkers, it's actually afraid of them. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to acknowledge. Society is terrified of intelligent people who actually use their intelligence. Not the kind of smart that helps you climb the corporate ladder or ace standardized tests, but the kind that questions fundamental assumptions and challenges the status quo. You see, most people live their lives on autopilot, following scripts handed down by culture, media, and social expectations without ever really examining whether any of it makes sense. Then along comes someone like you, asking inconvenient questions like, "But why do we do it this way?" Or, "What if there's a better approach?" And suddenly, everyone gets defensive. Your questions shine a light on the arbitrary nature of so many social norms, and that makes people deeply uncomfortable, because it suggests they might be living unexamined lives. The thing is, intelligent people have this annoying habit of pointing out that the emperor has no clothes, and nobody wants to be the emperor in that scenario. When you start questioning consumerist culture, pointing out the emptiness of status-seeking behavior, or challenging popular beliefs with logic and evidence, you become a threat to the comfortable illusions that most people use to avoid confronting difficult truths about themselves and society. It's like being the person who points out plot holes in everyone's favorite movie. Technically you're right, but nobody thanks you for ruining their enjoyment. So society develops defense mechanisms. They label deep thinkers as pretentious, antisocial, or too intense. They create social pressure to conform, to not rock the boat, to just go along with the crowd and stop making everyone else feel bad about their choices. Here's where it gets really twisted. The same society that claims to value intelligence and education actually punishes people who use those tools to think independently. You're supposed to be smart enough to succeed in the system, but not so smart that you question the system itself. It's like being given a flashlight and then being told you're not allowed to shine it in certain corners. When intelligent people start connecting dots that others prefer to leave unconnected, when they see patterns that expose uncomfortable realities about human nature and social structures, they get marginalized. You become that person, the one who asks awkward questions at dinner parties, who won't just laugh along with jokes that normalize harmful behaviors, who insists on discussing the implications of things rather than just accepting them at face value. The isolation that intelligent people experience isn't just about struggling to find intellectual equals. It's about being actively pushed to the margins by a society that needs its illusions to function. Your capacity for deep thought becomes a liability in a world that runs on shallow consensus. But here's the thing that most people miss about this dynamic. Your outsider status isn't a bug, it's a feature. When you understand why society fears deep thinking, you can start using your intelligence strategically instead of letting it isolate you completely. And that's where everything changes. All right, let's get practical here, because understanding the problem is only half the battle. You need strategies to actually live in this world without losing your mind or your authenticity. First thing you gotta realize is that you don't need to be on all the time. Think of your intelligence like a sports car. It's got incredible power, but you don't need to floor it in every situation. Sometimes you're driving through a school zone, and 25 miles per hour is perfectly appropriate. Learn to calibrate your intellectual intensity to the situation. When you're grabbing coffee with a colleague, you don't need to deconstruct the sociological implications of caffeine culture. Sometimes, "How's your day going?" just needs a simple, genuine response. Save the deep dives for people and moments that can actually handle and appreciate them. The game changer is developing what I call intellectual code switching, the ability to connect with people at their level without dumbing yourself down or feeling frustrated. It's not about being fake, it's about finding common ground. Even in small talk, you can practice genuine curiosity about other people's experiences. Instead of dismissing someone's interest in sports as trivial, ask them what they love about it. You might discover insights into human nature, team dynamics, or personal passion that actually stimulate your mind. The key is approaching every interaction as an anthropological study. You're not there to judge or fix people, but to understand them. This shift in perspective transforms boring conversations into opportunities for observing human behavior, which is endlessly fascinating when you approach it with the right mindset. Build yourself a support network of fellow deep thinkers, but don't expect to find them in the usual places. Join philosophy groups, attend lectures, find online communities focused on intellectual pursuits, or start conversations about ideas that matter to you. Quality over quantity, remember? You might only connect with 1 or 2 people this way, but those connections will be worth more than 100 superficial friendships. And here's a crucial point. Don't be a missionary for intelligence. Not everyone wants to think deeper, and that's their choice. Your job isn't to awaken the masses. It's to find your tribe and contribute meaningfully to the world through your unique perspective. When you stop trying to convert everyone to your way of thinking, you'll find that social interactions become much less exhausting. Finally, embrace your role as an observer and translator. Your intelligence gives you a unique vantage point to understand both the deep thinkers and the mainstream crowd, which makes you incredibly valuable as a bridge between worlds. Use your insights to create content, solve problems, or help others in ways that honor your intellectual gifts without alienating you from society. The goal isn't to choose between intelligence and social connection, it's to find a way to honor both. When you stop seeing your intelligence as a burden and start viewing it as a responsibility to contribute something meaningful to the world, everything shifts. You're not just a smart person who feels isolated, you're someone with unique insights that the world actually needs, even if it doesn't always know how to appreciate them. So here we are at the end, and I want you to take a moment to really absorb what we've uncovered together. Your intelligence isn't a curse, it's your superpower. The loneliness you feel, the frustration with shallow conversations, the need for solitude, these aren't character flaws. They're signs that your mind operates at a frequency that most people simply can't match, and that's something to embrace, not apologize for. But here's the real question I want you to ask yourself tonight. What are you going to do with this understanding? Are you going to keep hiding your intelligence to fit in with people who don't challenge you? Are you going to keep pretending that small talk satisfies your intellectual hunger? Or are you finally going to own your brilliance and use it to create something meaningful in this world? Because let me tell you something, the world desperately needs more people who aren't afraid to think deeply, question everything, and stand apart from the crowd. I challenge you to try one thing this week. Find one person in your life and have a real conversation with them. Not about the weather, not about what they watched on Netflix, but about something that actually matters. Ask them what they think about human nature, what philosophy guides their decisions, or what they believe about the purpose of life. You might be surprised, there might be more depth hiding beneath the surface than you realized. And if not, well, at least you'll know you tried to bridge that gap instead of just complaining about it. Now, if this video resonated with you, if you found yourself nodding along and thinking finally, someone gets it, then I need you to do something for me. First, smash that like button because it tells YouTube that this kind of content matters, that there are people out there hungry for deeper conversations. Second, subscribe and hit that notification bell, not just to support the channel, but because you deserve content that actually feeds your mind instead of numbing it. And third, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You know that person, the one who's been struggling with feeling different, the one who thinks there's something wrong with them for wanting more substance in their relationships. Here's what I want you to understand. Every time you engage with content like this, every time you like, comment, or share, you're not just supporting a YouTube channel, you're voting for intelligence in a world that often celebrates the opposite. You're saying that depth matters, that thinking critically is valuable, and that there should be more spaces for people like us to explore ideas that actually challenge us. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the most profound realization you've had about your own intelligence and social life? Have you found ways to connect with others despite feeling intellectually isolated? I read every single comment, and honestly, some of the best insights come from you guys sharing your experiences. And if you're craving more content that dives this deep into the psychology of extraordinary minds, check out my video on why Nietzsche believed that most people are sleepwalking through life. It's going to completely change how you see the people around you. The link's right there in the description. Remember, your intelligence isn't making you lonely, it's making you selective. And in a world full of noise, being selective about who and what deserves your mental energy isn't antisocial behavior, it's wisdom. Keep thinking deeply, keep questioning everything, and never apologize for having a mind that refuses to accept simple answers to complex questions. The world needs more people who think like you, not fewer. Until next time, stay curious, stay authentic, and keep proving Schopenhauer right.